It would appear the sun has set on yet another corner of the British Empire, this one far down in the South Atlantic. Argentina today invaded and seized the Falkland Islands, which have been under British rule for nearly 150 years. Britain promptly broke diplomatic relations with Argentina, sent several of Her Majesty's warships steaming south, and appealed to the United Nations. It all seems like something out of the 18th century, but the British, and for that matter the Americans, are not amused. We have two reports. First, here is Bob Dyke in London.
Argentina claimed recovery of the Falklands hours before the British government admitted the invasion had taken place.
I have to confirm that an Argentine military attack on Port Stanley in the Falkland Islands has taken place, and that Port Stanley is now occupied by Argentine military forces.
The military odds were against the British from the outset today. Only a handful of 60 to 70 Royal Marines and an additional civilian defense force to protect the island's 1,800 residents and more than 600,000 sheep. The Argentinians sent a fleet of warships loaded with an estimated 4,000 troops. A Falkland Island amateur radio operator monitored here in Britain described what he saw.
About 500 personnel in Stanley, about 500 personnel in Stanley, and the aircraft carrier is believed to be carrying 1,500, 1,500.
Argentina says one of its officers was killed during the invasion. Apparently none of the islanders was hurt. Most of Falkland's inhabitants are descendants of the British, who expelled Argentina from the islands 150 years ago. Argentina says the Falklanders surrendered today as meekly as the sheep they've been raising there for generations. But here in London, the first response by some members of Parliament was anger.
This tin pot junta always threatens the islanders when it has trouble at home, and my God, it's got trouble at home. So we should have been ready for it and should continue to defend the islands.
Parliament meets again tomorrow for an extraordinary weekend session, the first of its kind since the 1956 Suez Crisis. Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher canceled a visit with the Queen to spend the day with her cabinet. In terms of military response, the British are sending their own warships, including a nuclear-powered submarine to the South Atlantic, but no one in authority here seems willing to say what the British Armada will do when it reaches the Falklands. But there is a growing feeling in official circles here that Britain's most viable and perhaps only weapon is diplomacy. Meanwhile, in Argentina, they've been celebrating all day, from the most decorated general down to the humblest man in the street. It is not only the settling of an old score with the British, but seismic surveys have shown that the Falklands might be rich in offshore oil reserves. Bob Dyke, ABC News, London.
This is Barry Dunsmore at the State Department. While the Falkland invasion seems like wonderful material for a Gilbert and Sullivan operetta, it is in fact being taken seriously by the U.S. and has personally involved President Reagan.
I wish that it had not gone forward. I understand they have landed there. And I did talk to the president of Argentina and trying to persuade him not to go forward with that.
Actually, Mr. Reagan spent 50 minutes on the phone last night with Argentine President Galtieri. Among other things, he said, "We will do anything to be of help." But by that time, the Argentine Navy was already on its way. Today, the international community is also taking the incident seriously as Britain raised the matter at the UN Security Council.
I cannot find words strong enough to express my government's condemnation of this wanton act of armed force.
A resolution calling for Argentina's withdrawal and negotiations to settle the dispute is now under consideration. But the Argentines say they will stay put.
I cannot but emphasize that in this manner, an end has been put to a situation of tension and injustice.
As international incidents go, it's hard to get too worked up about this one, except that it does illustrate once again that the power of the big powers is not what it used to be. Barry Dunsmore, ABC News, the State Department.